Okay, let's dive right into this explainer, because we need to investigate a truly massive disconnect happening in the tech world today. Basically, there is a staggering gap between AI's supposed capabilities and the actual business value it's generating. Honestly, we're witnessing what might be the greatest destruction of capital in the entire history of the tech industry. I mean, think about it. AI models are advancing exponentially. They're getting smarter, faster, and cheaper literally by the day. But the ability to translate that raw, unbridled intelligence into real profit and loss impact, it's hit a structural brick wall. We call this the deployment gap. It's the silent killer of enterprise innovation, where this brilliant underlying technology is completely sidelined by the sheer friction of real-world integration.
Now, I want you to zoom in and look really closely at this number. In 2025 alone, enterprises poured over $684 billion into AI initiatives. But here is the staggering reality. By year-end, $547 billion of that capital produced absolutely zero measurable results. Just wrap your head around the magnitude of that number. Entire sectors are burning cash on initiatives that are yielding nothing in return. And you know, this isn't a failure of research. It's not a failure of the models themselves. The math works perfectly fine. It is fundamentally a failure of execution. The industry basically bought the hype of easy artificial intelligence and severely underestimated how much friction comes with implementing it into a messy, human-driven enterprise.
So why is this happening? Well, this beautifully detailed breakdown illustrates the production reality that is keeping CEOs awake at night. It comes down to three structural points of failure, which were highlighted by a RAND Corporation meta-analysis of 2,400 enterprise AI initiatives. First up, we've got an abandonment rate of 33.8%. That means a full third of these wildly expensive projects are killed in the sandbox before they even touch production. Next is what they call the value void, sitting at 28.4%. These are the tools that actually make it to production, but employees simply ignore them, so they deliver zero actual business value. And finally, a sunken cost of 18.1%. These initiatives go live, people use them, but the maintenance and compute costs are so overwhelmingly high they literally never recoup their initial investment. MIT's Project Nanda confirmed this grim reality too, noting that 95% of enterprise generative AI pilots simply fail to move the needle.
To put it simply, buying enterprise AI today is honestly a lot like your grandma getting a brand new iPhone. She desperately wants it, the interface looks super inviting, but she is completely paralyzed the second she has to migrate her contacts, connect to the Wi-Fi, or remember her passwords. AI is deceptively easy to demo, but it is agonizingly hard to deploy in a complex socio-technical environment. A polished demo completely ignores the messy reality of data silos, tangled legacy infrastructure, and high-stakes security requirements. Like, a shiny text generator demo looks like pure magic in a boardroom, right? But it will completely break the moment it tries to connect with a 20-year-old on-premise healthcare database that's just riddled with strict HIPAA constraints. The AI model usually isn't the problem at all. This socio-technical environment is.
This brings us to Section 1, the rise of the FDE, and how they are bridging this deployment chasm.
To solve this massive execution failure, the market birthed a new breed of professional. But it's actually not an entirely new concept. If we look closely at this timeline, back in 2009, Palantir pioneered this idea. They were dealing with incredibly sensitive, fragmented government data silos and realized traditional software development life cycles were just way too slow. So they created embedded implementation experts called deltas, and at one point they actually employed more of them than traditional software engineers. Now fast forward through that massive 2025 deployment crisis we just talked about, and by 2026, the model had exploded into the mainstream. AWS aggressively committed $1 billion to a dedicated forward-deployed engineer unit, while Microsoft Frontier Company launched an entirely new $2.5 billion business unit, putting 6,000 embedded experts on the ground, focused entirely on intelligence and trust.
And check out where this talent is going. You probably guess Silicon Valley, right? Well, actually, New York City has officially surpassed San Francisco as the primary hub for FDEs, commanding 35% of all job postings compared to the Valley's 11%. Why the shift? It's because FDEs are desperately needed where the reality is the messiest. They aren't building foundational models in a vacuum. They are embedding deeply in the heavily regulated corridors of fintech, healthcare, and defense. The industry is seeing a staggering 1,000% year-over-year growth in hiring for this role because AI tools have successfully commoditized the raw coding, meaning human-led system orchestration is now the true bottleneck.
So what exactly makes an FDE so unique? If we zero in on this comparison, you'll see they are essentially half engineer, half consultant, and full owner.
Unlike a traditional software engineer who rarely interacts with the actual customer, or a solutions architect who talks to the customer but doesn't actually own the production code, the FDE is completely embedded. They take total, unblinking accountability for the end-to-end outcome. And the difference in business value? It's night and day. While a traditional in-house AI hire might spend 3 to 9 months burning cash just trying to figure out the internal architecture, an FDE delivers a concrete production result in just 2 to 6 weeks.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 2, English as the Code and why it's becoming the ultimate communication moat.
To work this fast, FDAs rely on a highly unexpected weapon. Take a really close look at this stat from the 2026 ETS report. A massive 92% of employers now view English as critical to engineering performance. We are operating in a globally integrated agentic economy, and English proficiency has evolved from just a nice-to-have soft skill into critical workforce infrastructure. In fact, 81% of employers report that AI adoption has actually increased the need for English proficiency. That completely proves that AI hasn't replaced language skills, it's elevated them to become the primary technical interface.
The reality is, English is quite literally the source code for agentic behavior. 90% of leaders state that English is essential for prompt engineering and evaluating outputs. Think about it. Because AI behavior is shaped by logic, natural language, and data, rather than some traditional hard-coded settings menu, a linguistic hallucination is quite literally a production bug. A poorly phrased prompt in English can crash a data pipeline or leak sensitive customer information just as easily as a missing semicolon in Python could 10 years ago. 60% of employers find that AI just cannot compensate for language gaps because the entire system completely depends on human clarity and judgment, meaning your ability to communicate is your ability to code.
Because of this massive shift, 70% of FDE job posts now explicitly demand discovery skills. The old back-office build model where an engineer gets a perfectly manicured Jira ticket and writes code in isolation, that is completely dead. Today's 2026 engineer is essentially a researcher. Stack Overflow data shows that 41% of AI engineers now spend over 30% of their time in customer-facing roles. The FDE's true superpower lies in problem decomposition under ambiguity. It's about sitting in a room full of stressed-out, non-technical stakeholders, listening to their messy, fragmented problems, and parsing out exactly what needs to be built before they ever write a single line of code.
And when they do start building, they use this incredible concept called a walking skeleton. This is a thin, functioning MVP that proves the integration story actually works in the customer's virtual private cloud before they even attempt to scale it. Think of it like laying down a single lane of dirt road all the way to your destination just to prove the route works, before spending millions of dollars pouring a massive 10-lane concrete highway. Instead of hiding in a basement building a perfect, isolated system that is absolutely guaranteed to break on deployment, the FDE ships this walking skeleton early. It requires a true field CTO mindset, taking radical ownership of a customer's data silos from day one.
This dynamic split screen really says it all. Traditional software delivery constantly fails because of the endless game of telephone between siloed departments. A sales rep overpromises a feature, hands it to an architect who misinterprets the design, who then hands it to a developer who writes code for a problem that doesn't actually exist. Everything gets lost in translation. But in an FDE engagement, zero handoffs. It represents the total collapse of the chain of accountability. The very person who sits in the boardroom, understands the business context, and hears the messy problem is the exact same person who writes the fix, integrates it, and pushes it to production.
So, as you look at your own internal bottlenecks, for organizations wanting to stop the bleeding and actually get value from their AI investments, it comes down to 3 vital operational shifts. Step 1. Solve for outcomes, not code. Remember, in an AI-driven world, implementation is cheap, but tangible business outcomes are expensive. Focus entirely on the outcomes. Step 2. Treat English as infrastructure. Recognize that it's the primary interface for AI orchestration and invest in it accordingly. And Step 3. Collapse the chain. Adopt radical ownership of your messy reality and completely eliminate those internal handoffs that kill your agility.
Ultimately, that $547 billion failure rate isn't a failure of AI technology or the underlying models. It is entirely a failure of discovery. The market has finally recognized this massive gap and is aggressively hiring its way out of it, one forward-deployed engineer at a time. Enterprises have finally woken up to the fact that they need high-stakes, adaptable problem solvers far more than they need traditional full-time code monkeys.
We are living through a massive shift from traditional, isolated coding into an entirely new era of human-led orchestration and radical ownership. So, as we wrap up this explainer, the only question left for your organization is, are you ready to deploy?